Do you hate your job? Do you want to go off the grid, be free from bills, and find your true passion in life? Let me tell you the story about Malte. When he was growing up, everybody told him to choose a career with a high success rate. Malte educated himself at one of the country's finest universities, and after his studies, he started to work as an auditor. As an auditor, he made a fair amount of money, and he bought a nice loft downtown, fancy clothes, a new car and top electronics. But regarding his tasks at work, he hated them. He felt trapped in the grid. Wake up at 7 a.m, get dressed in a way too fancy suit, off to work, same room every day, same chair every day, similar tasks every day, no adventures, no passion. In addition, it was expected of him to work a lot of overtime as he was both young and new to the industry. Every day was the same, every week was the same, every month was the same, and he felt more and more trapped for each day. Finally, he said to himself, "Have I educated myself until I was like 25 for this? This is not a life, this is an invisible prison." And then one day, he just went up from his chair, out of his office room, through the corridor, into his boss's room, knocked lightly on the door frame. "I quit," he said. He had 1 month's notice, and his boss tried to persuade him to stay by all means. Apparently, all of his overtime hours made a lot of money for the company. The boss played every card he could when he tried to persuade him to stay. He offered a higher salary and more responsibilities. But Malte was persistent in his decision. He couldn't live this life anymore. After a few months, he had traded his loft downtown to a smaller apartment. The new apartment was only 24 square meters. It was in very poor condition, and in the bathroom there was black mold in the ceiling. But the rent was cheap. Pretty soon, he never used any of his overpriced way too fancy suits any longer either. He just preferred to wear a worn-out t-shirt instead. He had almost no expenses, which gave him freedom to reconsider who he was and what he wanted to do in life. But he had no income. And after a few months, his bank account was slowly but surely about to run out of money. Ever since Malte was a little boy, for as long as he could remember, he used to draw and paint all sorts of things. But one day, when he had been in his early teenage years, he had just stopped doing so. That was when he had started to focus on his safe route in life, which had led him to become an auditor. Despite his shrinking bank account and his non-existing incomes, Malte did not even bother to search for a new job. Instead, he just sat at his apartment and made drawings and paintings, and pretty soon he realized that he was still a pretty good artist, even though he had not painted and made drawings in almost 15 years. After a few weeks, his apartment was full of drawings and paintings, but his bank account was about to hit rock bottom. He did the obvious thing. He took his paintings and went out to sell them on the streets. He was a bit scared about what people would think about his paintings, and he was very nervous when he placed his paintings on the edge of the walking streets for the first time. At first, people were just walking by. He felt invisible, like someone who had his hat in his hand begging for money. But after a while, someone stopped and looked at his paintings. The person stood there for a while, and then he said, "What's the price for that one?" Malte was overwhelmed by the question. Even if he had hoped that someone would buy a painting, he was still very surprised when it actually happened. He wasn't sure about what he would respond to the man, and all of a sudden, it just popped out of him. $2. The man opened his wallet and took out $2 from it. Then he handed it over to Malte. "Great paintings," the man said. Even if It was only $2. A light sparked within Malte. I can actually make money in this way. And pretty soon Malte made street art into his actual livelihood. He made a good living as an artist, but it was only crumbles of what he had made as an auditor. His standard of living had drastically deteriorated since his time at the office, but for the first time in his life he felt a strong passion for what he did. And pretty soon he met his girlfriend Alice, who also liked to paint, and together with her he continued to sell art on the streets. They were poor, but their livelihood made them free. They traveled a lot, and life was both filled with adventures and passion. As an auditor, every day had been the same. Now every day was different, and even if Malte was poor, he was for the first time in his life truly happy.